This podcast is powered by The Plug.
I'm your host, Chardonnay, aka Coco Madame, and I'm so excited to be here. What's up, everyone, and welcome to Hustle Bunny.
But now that I'm really thinking, oh my God, I think it was with a boy. The first time I had my first little hookup.
Yes.
And I'm thinking back, I'm feeling like it was probably like we got into the high school age range of things, and I feel bad. I'm sorry to him. I can't even remember.
Yeah, well, it probably wasn't worth remembering. That's the whole thing. It wasn't worth remembering.
Yeah. I think we're going to go with a man. I feel like that probably was it.
Yeah.
I definitely would remember if my first hookup was with a girl the same way I remember my first kiss. So I'm just, he was just unmemorable.
So your first kiss was with a girl?
Yes.
See, the smile, the cheese, that's how
I know. My gay ass. All right. It's just, oh, I love it. I really do.
Yes, you got the little glow there. I feel that. Yes. I'm here for it. Okay, let's see. My last question is, who is your biggest influence?
Oh, we want to say ourselves, right? Because that sounds like we're on our like enlightenment shit, and like although that's like the goal, we're trying to get there. Honestly, cheesy answer is like probably like my mom. She's definitely one of those people where like the voice is in the back of the head, and it's kind of like one of those where it's like, am I trying to seek her approval in any way? Absolutely not. But it is definitely something where I'm like, oh, like, how would my mom try to handle that challenge? Or like, oh, like, if she's on some boss shit, how could I be on that boss shit? Like,
right. So your parents definitely do influence you. Like you said, like you're not looking for approval, but you're like, my mom, she might, how would they handle that? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or like you look for their approval, like, would they be proud if I did that? But then again, you're like, I've done a lot of questionable things in my life, as we all have.
Haven't we all?
But I'm pretty sure our parents have done the same thing.
Oh, exactly. They're just trying to keep it on the low because they can't.
Right.
They can't tell us, because then that's going to be them being like, it's fine, you go ahead and be a little badass kid. And you know damn well that's not the truth.
Exactly.
So, you just got to wait for them to come to terms with their own tea later on.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be, you're a little older, and that's when they start to give you the little breadcrumbs of secrets. And you're like,
yes, my dad started giving me his little breadcrumbs here recently. He like I said, I haven't really fully come out to my parents about like the sex work stuff that I've done. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that they know, but that's not something that you just tell them straight up. And
they're never ready.
Yes. My dad I actually went over to my parents' house a couple of weeks ago, and my dad was like, have you seen this new show called P-Valley? And it's like this show about strippers in Mississippi. And if you haven't watched it, it's amazing. They have Uncle Clifford, and he is the house mom, and it is just a mess. It is a Mississippi mess. And I got so hyped up. I was like, yeah, I've seen it. It's such a good show. And like with him asking me that question, I felt like I knew what he was doing. Mm-hmm. He answered his question without answering.
You want to play the comparison game?
Yes. Yes. And then my mom is completely like, she's just oblivious to it. And, like I said, when the time comes, when we get to that point where we're like ready to sit down and tell our parents stuff, we'll get to that point. But right now, like me sitting down and having that face-to-face conversation is just not on the top of my to-do list.
And I don't blame you.
Yes.
The time will come. You mind your business, they mind theirs.
Yes.
It's all good.
Yes. And once you're out of it, they see what you've done. They're like, she ain't dead. That's cool. We're happy. That's,
Exactly that.
911?
What's your emergency?
Yeah, somebody's just broke into my house.
Okay, we'll get a unit over shortly.
Okay, please hurry.
Real quick, can you verify your race for us?
I'm black. No, I'm sorry, I'm white. I'm full white.
Okay, can you answer a few questions just to confirm?
Okay.
Okay, how do you feel about Black Lives Matter?
All lives matter.
Nice. Did OJ do it?
Yeah, he did it.
Okay, who's the best boxer in the United States?
Jake Paul.
King of R&B.
Justin Bieber.
Okay, last question. Say ask.
X. Oh, fuck. No, hey!
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you or your company are looking to jump into the podcast world, now is the time. The Plug Agency is here to connect you to the full power of podcasting. You just record and leave the rest to us. The people are listening and want to hear from you. Theplug-agency.com. That's theplug-agency.com. Click the link in the episode description for an exclusive offer.
All right, so we're going to start, well, I guess I should say this show is going to be based upon the LGBTQ plus. And as we know, we are moving towards a non-binary society, I should say, right? And you yourself are actually non-binary, look at me, gender neutral.
Yep. Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So I think, how about we just start with you kind of telling our listeners how that works for you, or just in general what non-binary is.
For sure. So as always, never to speak for the whole community, not a monolith kind of thing. But for me, I always view, the gender binary as being this artifice that we partake in, right? It's such bullshit. It's not real. We just have convinced ourselves it is. So I feel like being non-binary is accepting, viewing, and seeing that reality, and then being like, fuck that, I'm not partaking. And then you're just going to go off and you present yourself in the world however the fuck you feel. And so for me, I'm someone who's never going to limit myself in any sort of presentation. I have been on T for several years and then was off, and I use binders some days I don't. It's there's never going to be this one way that I feel like this is the perfect final way that I want to present, because I always want to feel the flux. I always want to feel the fluidity of the fact that we are out here doing this whole human experience thing, and it is this constant ebb and flow. We see that in almost every aspect of life. Anytime we try to break things down into one or two, black or white, male, female, anytime we try to do those things, how long does it take for us to fuck around and be nah? No.
Right, exactly. We change with time. And, even for myself, it's some days, even with my appearance, right? So with my appearance, I'm always constantly changing because I don't want to be just one way. There was a time in my life where I was shaving my head every other week because that's just how I was feeling. Some days I want to be super glamorous and have the big curls and do the thing. So I feel you on that point. And yeah, humans, we don't really, I don't know why we put ourselves in boxes and just these little, I don't know, I guess everyone needs something to categorize in their brains.
We love to limit ourselves.
Right. Yeah, super limited. Yeah, I like that. I like that you're very going with the flow of life, in your life particularly, so I think that's really awesome. Let's see. So what is your background? How do you identify as of right now, I should say?
Yeah. So these days I just generally identify as queer. If people want to ask for the micro words, I'll go for it. I'll be oh yeah, I guess I'm pansexual or bisexual if we want to get really into linguistics of things. I lean more towards bisexuality, but then at the same time, then people have this oh, well, doesn't that exclude trans people? No, it doesn't, but I don't want to get into that with everybody all the time. So it's yeah, under all those things, we have all our different like micro labels, right? But in general, I'm just like, I'm a big queer fuck. All right. Like I'm a queer. And I'm definitely someone who loves the reclamation of slurs. So like, I have no problem being just like, I'm the biggest queer tranny you've ever seen. Like, that's fine. It simply is that. Like, the straights, I don't get it. I'm here for it. I support you. I love you. But can it be me? Could it be me? No.
Well, at least you know. You know what?
Exactly.
I've being a, I guess, straight woman, I've messed around with plenty of females within myself. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm bisexual, but definitely bi-curious, which is probably just means I'm bisexual. Let's just,
I'm just going to say, if the thought is in your head, there's a reason there. There's a reason you done experimented multiple times.
Yeah, if it was like a one and done and I was just like, oh no, like that was not for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I've been down that path a many of times.
I see the little limp in your wrist. It's okay.
Oh, you see that? Oh, you see the little... It's a little flex in there. So what was like your journey of self-discovery? Like, how did you know? Was it just one of those things of like, I know you had mentioned that you had hooked up with the male for the first for your first time, but you got your first kiss from a female. Did you initially hook up with a male because you wanted to see if it's something that you liked, or you were just, we were just all young and we just tried different things at the time?
I think it's like a little bit of a combo, honestly. If we're going back to do some honest reflection here, there's definitely an element of performative or compulsory heterosexuality that went into it, right? Because I'm like, oh, I'm in high school. Like, this is definitely what people do. Like, you just hook up with the guys. That's what happens.
Right.
And then it's like in that moment, you're like, oh, wait, this isn't as fun as I thought. I'm not enjoying myself the way I thought I would. Maybe is it you as an individual? Is it the fact that like you are male presenting to me? And like, so then it's kind of one of those things where like, definitely growing up, always knew, like, I would look at women and be like, hubba bubba. Like, I was always like, wow. Like, wow. I remember, okay, definitely ratting myself out here. I remember the first time I watched Sailor Moon being like,
ooh, my favorite.
Literally all these just hot, badass women being like, oh my God. And having that moment of, do I want to be him? Or what is going on? What am I feeling right now?
Yes, you're
and
like
just like putting that away for later.
Yes. Well, I don't know if you remember this, but I went back. So I used to watch Sailor Moon as a girl in the States, right? We all watched the US version. I went back and watched the original, like Japanese version.
Where Sailor Venus is fucking obviously queer and they're not trying to play the like their cousins game.
Yes, exactly. And then there was like the episode, maybe like, I think it was like the third season or so, there was a lesbian couple. Yes, there was a lesbian couple. So I remember like, I forgot what her name was, but she came into the Sailor Moon high school, per usual. That was like their old stomping ground. And everyone was in love with her because they thought she was a boy.
As listen.
Yes, she rolls up on a motorcycle. She has like this cute little short haircut, and then they end up starting dating another chick, and they're lesbians. And I was like, only in Japan would they let that shit fly. Because, like in the US, none of that was going on. None of that was going on Sailor Moon.
No obviously queer characters here. They said, no. We don't let that happen. We don't fly that flag here.
No, we don't expose that. Yes, I remember that. I remember the first time I'd seen that as like a young adult and like going back and revisiting Sailor Moon and be like, dang, like there's all kinds of stuff on here. Or like even the fact that Sailor Moon is dating a dude, she's 14 and he's like 21.
Yep. We're not even gonna get into Tuxedo Mask because he a whole mess. We can't with him, but
no.
Man, that was definitely Sailor Moon did some things for me as a child where I was like, we're gonna put that away. We're gonna
put that in the spank bank.
we go think about that again later. And then I remember trying to do the my friends think that this guy is hot, so I must think this guy is hot. And then I'm like,
right.
No, I really don't. Like, I had all my little crushes, and I knew shout out to my mother once again. She definitely knew before I even knew what was going on. Because she was like, the only man that you have a poster of in your room is Adam Lambert. And I was like, reflecting, I'm like, okay, I definitely wanted to be him.
Yes.
That's why he was in my room.
Yes.
There were no other men that I was oogling and ogling at night. I was like, it was all the pop divas and Hayley Williams, like all the
yes.
girls. They were all over my room. And I'm like, yes, that's it. So that was definitely one of those like earlier, like, oh, we're going to put that pin for later once again. And yeah, it's just been like this slow unwinding of discovery of self where it's like so painfully obvious to literally everyone in my life. And then there's me just like 5 years behind the curve trying to pick up and being like, oh, wait a minute now, hold on. We might have had an epiphany here. We might have did something. Right. And everybody being like, yeah, you're just now catching on. Okay,
yes.
bet.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So your mom was she's like, I already knew, so it wasn't like a big, like coming out type of a situation in any way.
Not at all. And it's always hilarious when I tell this, but like my mom dragged my ass out of the closet because I was living with my sister and she came for a visit and was just like, hey, what's going on? Because I was definitely like, probably like 13, 14, having like deep mental crisis because I was like, oh my God, like, am I going to hell? Because we were like raised Catholic.
Right.
My dad married a pastor, so she did her own, like, don't do that. But my mom was like, I know, right? And I was like, you know what? And she's like, I know. I was like, what do you know? She goes, can we not do this? Can we not do this back and forth? Like, just tell me what's going on. Give me your truth. And I was like, oh, well, like, I really like kissing girls. And she was like, okay, wow. Amazing. Shocker. Are you going to be out of this funk of yours now that you've told somebody? Or like, are you just this something else? And I was like, oh, okay. That's not how I thought that was going to go at all.
Right.
And so it's funny to me because I'm always like, how long did you know before I knew? What was going on here? You couldn't have given me a little couple of crumbs to work with, but
yes, at least throw some hints out there or just, but I feel like as a parent, you don't want to ever force your kids to do anything.
Exactly that.
Because, when you're so young and you're super influenced, especially like around middle school, high school, because we think like, right, we're like so high strung and we're so mentally still developing. We're still children, right? So, and then you're surrounded by a whole bunch of other kids, right? And we're all struggling, but we don't really talk about it. Mm-hmm. So you're like, your parents are like, well, I don't really want to just go ahead and fucking throw like salt into the wound. We don't know. We don't want to throw you into the fire and then just be like, oh, well, and then just not know. Mm-hmm. And then you could be completely opposite. You could be,
It's true.
Because I thought I was everything growing up. Trust me, I thought I was gossip.
You gotta try it all.
Yes, try it all. I tried to get in where I fit in, and accolades to your mom for being so open and just welcoming to you and like your sexuality and just who you are as a person. Because unfortunately, there's like a lot of people out there who don't have that open door or open relationship with their parents. And that's very rough.
And I am always so incredibly grateful that despite every stereotype of there being like the homophobic Puerto Rican mom, I didn't get one. So I am always so incredibly grateful for that because she, in being so supportive but not pushy or anything, has always just been like, just a silent supporter. It's not like she's out here being like, yeah, like, tell me all about the details. I need to know everything. It's just always been like, okay, cool. Like, that's you. Got it. Okay, cool.
I like that. Do you have any advice for people who are like looking to come out, but they don't really know how to start that conversation with their family or even just like a friend?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first and foremost, just if you're not ready, don't force yourself to have that conversation yet, right? Like we all have to take our own time because we have to come to terms in comfort with it within our own selves first, right? Like as wild as that seems to say out loud is like there's always like this process of coming to your own truth. And like if you're not comfortable having that conversation yet, don't. Because at the end of the day, your truth is for you and you are welcoming other people into that to fully embrace you. And so, yes, it is a challenge. It is definitely a moment of vulnerability because things can go quote unquote wrong. You know, you might lose that connection potentially, unfortunately, but like never force yourself. You know when your time is right. And then always, you know, as whack as it sounds to say, trust your gut. Your gut knows who you can trust, who you can really like be open and honest with. And then just like, I always feel like I'm a horrible person to ask because I didn't really come out, right? Like my mom was like, what's up? What's going on? Let's chat, right? And then when it comes to all other friends and other people in my life, I'm just someone who I'm like a Blair horn, right? Like I got the blowhorn out that's like, hey, you know I'm gay, right? Like it feels like at this point in my life, like there's no one who comes into my life who isn't painfully aware of the fact that I'm gay. So I'm like, I don't know. Like, yes, we come out every day, but I feel like coming out just becomes like a fun little game over time. Like the first time you do it, right? Because we come out every day. We come out to every single person that we meet. It's like this always permanent action that we're in. So like the first time is always like, oh, scary as shit. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What do I say? How do I do it? And then it's like, it just becomes more and more natural as like the time goes. And now me coming out looks like just chit chatting with a coworker or whatever. And they're just like, oh, well, like, what's that? Well, like, who are your celebrity crushes or whatever? And I'm just like, Megan Thee Stallion. And then like, oh, okay, but, like we didn't have to deal all the rigmarole. Like it just is. And it comes out in conversation and it simply is. But that's not to diminish the challenge that is coming out at all. Like, by all means, just a quick little like, hey.
Well, have you lost any friends have you lost any connections for any people for you coming out and being so boldly, confidently you?
It's happened throughout the years. There's still, there are family members who don't associate with me. That's fine. That's not my business. You live yours, I live mine, right? And then there's definitely been friends along the way, or, quote unquote friends along the way where, they're with you while you're queer, right? Like they're okay if you like to eat a little cooch, they're cool. But then the second you're just like, oh, and by the way, like my gender is not what you can possibly imagine within like this binary system, then they get a little uncomfortable and it's like, oh, I don't know how to relate to you. I don't know how to associate with you. Like, am I going to hurt your feelings? And it always becomes a game of like the person themselves being uncomfortable. And it's like, okay, cool. So you're not interested remotely in my personhood. You're not remotely interested in the relationship that we've built, because if you really were a friend to the person that is me, it wouldn't fucking matter. Right.
Right.
So, I mean, it sucks, but it's, I don't know if unfortunately is even the right word, but it's one of those things that happens throughout time that, like, as you grow, as you become more confident in the being that is you, where it starts to flow right off, like there will be the people who don't accept you, and that's none of your fucking business.
Right.
That's their business. As long as you know you are that bitch and you walk out the house every day knowing that you are that bitch, that is your business.
Yes, exactly. I love that.
Anybody dim your shine,
Yeah, I love that. I think that more people like you, we need more people like you who are super confident and like self-aware, because the people who are uncomfortable with it, or like they get so just like, uneasy talking about it. It's like, but why? What makes you so, is it because you're uncomfortable within yourself and your sexuality where you might be questioning yourself? Or, I understand religion always plays a part in it, or different generations of adults or whatever, it plays a factor into it. But I've always come to find when people who get super uneasy, it's because they question themselves, or it's because of one of those reasons, right? It's either like a religious reason or lack of understanding. It's like because you don't understand it, but you don't want to, like you're choosing to be ignorant. Like you don't want to understand it. So you're going to be uncomfortable. You're not breaking down that barrier and just accepting a human for a human, you know? I've had friends who did some crazy shit and they get scared because like, oh my God, like, I don't know if you're still going to be my friend. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't change you as a person. That doesn't change your core. You can change what you look on the outside every day for the rest of your life. But if you're still going to be that person that I enjoy being around, then there's no difference in that.
Right. It's all about the soul of a human being. And like, you recognize, people talk about vibes all the time, and what are vibes but just recognizing the energy that somebody has in their soul, like
right.
Love that soul. You love that soul.
Yes.
It's not going to matter to you what's going on because we've all done some shit. We've all been through some shit. Like at the end of the day, you recognize the energy that is before you and you know whether or not you want to connect with it or not. And
yeah, exactly. I'm a big vibe person. I'm a big energy vibe, as cliche as that sounds, but I do go off of people's energy. And if I'm not just like feeling it, then it's like, I'm not going to force it. I don't force nothing.
Nope. Because our intuition knows, right? Our gut knows. We are not dumb creatures. We understand. We can perceive. We can be perceived. And that's just it, just all about finding those people with the right energy.
Right. So how does your sexuality affect your everyday life with like work, getting jobs, like different things like that? Do you find that it's hard? Because I know a lot of different like websites and things are giving you the option of saying either you don't want to say it or non-binary. Do you find it's hard to apply for jobs or,
So I'll say that my sexuality has had less of an impact on my career focusing than my gender expression.
There we go. I'm sorry, your gender, I should say.
Oh, you're good. Listen. So yeah, like getting employed is always a trip already off the bat because I have a very quote unquote ethnic sounding name, right? Like people are like, what is that? It's Joaquin Rodriguez. Oh no, like that's too much, right? So like we have that all like off the bat, and that's its own set of things, right?
Right.
Then, I always identify, right? Because in my mind, would it be easier for me to get the job if I just say I choose to refuse to answer or do not wish to answer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Like, would it be easier in that sense? Because like the resume will be seen, la-di-da-di-da. They won't be focused and tripped up on that aspect of like who I am.
Right.
It would be easier in that way. But with that comes the knowledge that when you do come to the table and have to defend yourself and be like, no, these are my pronouns. This is how you will acknowledge me. Like, how much more difficult are you getting? Like the challenge of it all becomes so much more difficult. And then that's when you have the retaliatory behavior that's like, oh, well, if that's how you're going to be, like, we'll just find any little thing to nitpick about and get your ass out. So is it a challenge? I'm not going to lie and say it's not. It fucking sucks trying to find a job. There was, after Tattered Covered closed and I lost my little gig there, trying to find a job was months-long efforts of like, well, here are my pronouns on my emails. Yes, I'm non-binary. Here we are, la-di-da-di-da. And a bunch of like, oh, well, like, thanks for applying. Or like, we had a great interview, but we went with someone else. And like, obviously, like, those are potentially things where like, is it true? Yeah, there's definitely room for that to be true. But there's also the knowledge of, I know I nailed that interview. I know I have all the experience you could possibly want. I know I have references that will blow anybody out of the water. I know you're just uncomfortable because like, you can't see it now, but I have a big old, the trans symbol on my shoulder. It's tattooed on my body. It is visible. Like there is no way of escaping my identity. I make it painfully clear to everyone because I love myself. I love my truth. And I am so beyond the point of not living in my truth and not living in my best life for the placation and comfort of others. So yeah, I mean, it definitely took me way longer than it should have to find a job.
Yes.
Sometimes it's hard to keep those jobs. Am I exhausted all the time of trying to fight people who are like closed-minded into being like, hey, I know you are going to internalize me as a woman because you see titties, but if you're in the room with me, it will be they. And I will yell over you. I will interrupt you. You will acknowledge and respect.
Right.
So it's like, it's the most frustrating challenge to have, but it's not impossible, right? Like there are non-binary people out here fucking killing the game, just being amazing writers, being amazing stylists, being amazing hairstylists, like anything you could possibly imagine. We're out there killing the game. It's just, it's a matter of having the resiliency and, the strength of character and strength of self to just be like, nah, we're going to persevere. We're going to power through this shit, because at the end of the day, like, is it a challenge? Are there risks? Yes. But who are we shorting but ourselves if we don't reach?
Right. I like that. I'm going to take a few steps back, and you had mentioned pronouns like they, them, their.
Yeah.
So how do pronouns work for people who don't know or they need to know, including myself? I know there's so many different ways to identify. I know there's people, like you said, the micro categories, but what are kind of some of just like the basics, even just how you like to be?
Yeah. I always feel like pronouns are like so easy, right? We know them. We've just made it this big deal in our minds now because it's like people are being forced to acknowledge and recognize that language is power, and that specificity of language is power, right? So like we have your she, her, hers, we have your he, him, his, we have your they, them, theirs, you have neo pronouns like ze, zers, them, right? So like pronouns can be whatever. They can be anything that people want, like any way that you want to be referenced, that can be your pronoun. Are these like the big three that we know? Are these the big three that have been popularized throughout the years? Yes. But they as a singular pronoun has existed since the 1300s. It just phased out of popularity like language does. Language evolves, like, and here's another way, right? Like we see it evolving once again, and that's fine. It's just, it doesn't ever have to be like this grand thing that I feel like some people always imagine it like, oh, well, I can't ever, right? You gender dogs all the time.
Yeah.
You misgender dogs all the time and then quickly go, oh no, I'm sorry, I meant she, right? It's the same thing for humans. Why do we not extend that same level of decency and concern to humans that we extend to animals?
Right. So
it's always like, it can be as simple as like, I'm someone who wears a button because I'd be damned, right? Like I wear my little they, them, their button all the time. And honestly, at the place of work that I work, like I work in human services, like I do a bunch of case management kind of stuff. So like all of us on staff are wearing our pronoun buttons to make sure that other people feel comfortable, because we do serve so many trans individuals. And like that in and of itself is like this small little signal of like, oh, ding, 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 they care. They're going to respect me. They're going to give me their truth, like from the jump. And, it's as simple as like, put it in your email so people know. You normalize these behaviors so that it doesn't become like this glaring, like, oh, well, like, why are they asking me that? Like, isn't it obvious? Because no, it's not, right? Like, we can assume, but assumption isn't the way to go, right? Assumption is not going to lead to connections, and assumption is not going to lead to genuine ways of being with other people, right? So it's a simple question. When you're introducing yourself, even, like, hey, I'm Izra, they, them, boom, done. Conversation had, over with. Or like in your email, or when you're in your little Zoom calls with people that you don't know, parentheses right after the name, boom.
Yeah.
It's so, because it's like, we all know that we're being referred to, right? It's just, do we extend the respect to allow and truly see people for who they are? I think that's what it kind of breaks down to, at least for trans folks, is like, it becomes this symbol of like, do you actually see me for who I am?
Right.
Or are you running with your preconceived notions of who I am?
Right. You've already categorized me based upon something an idea that you've made it up in your head already, without even meeting me, because every encounter with someone is going to be different, so even if there were 1,000 people that looked like you, none of them are going to be the same.
Exactly.
None of their experiences, how they want to be approached, none of it's going to be the same. So it's never good to just mush people together into one category, right? Because everyone's experience is different. Everyone's makeup is different. So yeah, I know we definitely need to get better with normalizing referring to people as they, them, their, right? Because normally we use those for grouping people. How we use that word, and it's just a mess. Words are crazy. They can go every which way, as we all know. It's like mind blowing. But yes, we do. It's not like you said. It's like we just have to normalize using those categories, not just the basic him, her, she. But yeah, we're getting there. Hopefully, we'll get there in like the next 5 to 10 years. Hopefully, sooner than that. Hopefully, by like our 30s and 40s that. I think, I think that it's our generation who's really going to have to be pushing this forward. I think everyone else who's kind of before us is kind of, they're like, nah, I'm good on that. I think it's really going to be us that's really pushing that.
Oh yeah. And that's like the power of being like the like the younger generation or the generation that is coming up, and the fact that like you do ultimately get to have a say in how things transform. And like overall, our generation as a whole is so much more queer, so much more free from all the bullshit that was placed on us by those who came before us. We see right through it. We're not having it.
Yes.
Like, honestly, I agree with you. Like, I feel like normalizing just introduction with pronouns and just casual conversation of like not misgendering people and just being casual with it. I don't see it being like that long of a thing, because it's like,
it is what it is.
It is what it is,
And you can't pretend like it's not happening. I think a lot of people try to pretend like it's not happening. And I also believe that a lot of the older generation, they don't want you to be so sex positive, gender positive. Like I feel like they have like such ideals about what all that is, So when you do meet someone who is so positive about their sexuality and who they are and like what they're about, even like someone down to myself, where it's like, I'm so sexually positive with the work that I do, the people that I hang out with, just myself in general. It's like, that is still uncomfortable for people to listen to. They're like, well, why would you be comfortable with doing that for? Like, why? But it's like, you don't watch, everyone's sexual. I mean, there's pansexual and asexual, and I may have used pansexual the wrong way, but asexual, for sure. The people, like, everyone has some sort of sexuality. Everyone has some sort of a kink. Everyone watches porn. So you can't pretend like you're uncomfortable with it, because I'm sure you masturbated. And if you haven't, then you probably should. And that's why you're pent up in the first place.
Exactly that, right? Because there's definitely this element, I feel, of like, well, since we were stifled, we have to stifle you.
Yes.
We weren't allowed to live our whole truths because we had to be pent up. You have to as well. And it's like, we're like,
yes.
You got the wrong fucking ones, because we're going to live our truths. We're going to live our best lives. And if you want to be angry and grumpy in your little corner because you don't want to admit that you're a human being who has human desires and drives and just like goals that you want to achieve, and like, that's on you. That's your problem.
Yes.
I hope you can rest with your peace, but like, I'm not. I'm good. I'm going to try to do everything I can, and I'm not going to feel any shame about it, because shame is the biggest waste of time.
Exactly. It is shame and like regrets and things like that, where you're like, oh, like, I wish I would have done that. I wish I was more myself. I wish I could get a second chance. And we all have those moments, but you know what? Like, if you are true to yourself, you wouldn't have to have those regrets within your soul. You can just be 100% like, okay, at least I did that. At least I tried it. And if something doesn't work out, or you feel like it wasn't the path that you should have went down, at least you tried it. You never know until you try.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly that.
Yes. So we're going to move over to relationships.
Fun
Everyone's favorite topic, right? It's 2021 and I feel like relationships are getting weirder, harder, and like unhealthier by the minute.
It is a trip every single day being like, what in the hell is going on out here in these streets?
Yes. Yes, I feel like, being from like a social media age, I feel like they make you feel a type of way. Social media always makes you feel a type of way with relationships. And I feel like us, the generation that we are not putting labels on relationships. There's people who are putting labels on relationships. There's polyamorous. There is whatever you want to do. The options are endless. But I will ask you, what is dating like for you? Like, do you find it easy to maneuver through with dating? Do you keep like an open heart, open mind?
Right now I'm enjoying being single. I'm loving navigating that because I'm someone who previously had been like relationship after relationship, like long-term relationships too, because I'm someone who is so deeply infatuated with the idea of love and loving. And like, I was like, oh, of course, like time is the best way to measure that. Like if it's a good relationship, it's a long one. And so now I'm coming to terms with the fact that like, bitch, you do know you can have a good time for a short time and you don't need to spend the rest of your days with one single individual. And that was another, unlearning curve, was like, wait a minute, I am bursting forth with so much passion. I can date as many individuals, like ethically, obviously, as long as they know about one another and we're open and we're communicating, like being safe. That's the way I'm kind of trying to live. Like polyamory was so eye-opening to me when I started to recognize like, oh, this is the pattern of loving in which I can operate most comfortably. Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm just chilling. It's me by myself. I get my little flirt on from time to time. Yes. We'd all be lying if we didn't say we jumped on Bumble from time to time to build gratification in the days of Miss Rona, because we can't just go to the bar and have somebody tell us that we're looking fine as hell.
Right.
Or at least I'm not. I know theoretically you could since they're open, but I ain't gonna mess around and do that.
No, we ain't doing all that.
From online. You can show me your cute little hyper selected and curated pictures. We can flirt kiki for a couple seconds and then it's going to be me and my sex toys by myself in my bed enjoying me until, someone who's interesting enough pops along, but we're not rocking with any sort of like expected timelines or anything like that right now.
That is... Sorry.
Both our cats are popping off.
Oh, they are popping off. You be thinking someone came in here and was about to rob you. Oh, no. But yeah, no, relationships that's a whole nother thing. I'm so particular when I come to like relationships. Like I've only had a handful. I think I've only had 3 serious relationships. Everyone else was just kind of like, I'm here for a good time, not a long time.
Mm-hmm. We fucking around. It's a good time.
Yeah, that's like, what this is. Like, what it is when you guys start talking, like, okay, well, it ain't going to go far. It might be a couple of months, a couple of weeks. It might be a day, but it is what it is. So we're going to move over to mental health now. For those who are looking for places to go, who need help or maybe just like a safe space. Are there safe spaces where people can go in Colorado?
Yeah, so like some that I know up off the top of my head, we definitely have the GLBT Center right off of like, Colfax and High Street, if I remember correctly. Those intersections might not be right, but it's definitely off of Colfax in that little area. Obviously, Miss Rona is making things a little more difficult, but they've always been amazing about organizing like group chat nights and like just being able to like meet with people in your community and be like, oh my God, you're having these same experiences, and just being a place to like meet people who are with you and like hang, like just build those connections kind of situation. And that's honestly where I got a lot of the folks that I first met when I like first met out, like when I first moved out here and was like completely by myself. I was like, queers, need to find some. Went there. They had like, and this is granted, this is a couple years, many moons ago at this point. But this is probably like 6 years ago, and I remember being like the baby in the room, like, oh my goodness, like all of you guys are so grown and cool, and like, can I be grown and cool? And now I'm the like quote unquote grown and cool one, according to the little baby queers at work. But yeah, like that's the one hard part, is I wish I knew and stayed on top of things more with Miss Rona doing what she's doing. But like, there's such a rich queer community here in Denver. Like, you can't throw a rock without hitting somebody. And like, obviously personalities differ, and there are going to be some catty queens wherever you go. But the scene here has been so open-armed and so welcoming and so loving. And honestly, like, I'm not going to say I hate to say it, but if you ever just want to chat with me, you can always hit me up. Like, I'm around. I'm never going to turn somebody away. And then I know specifically for like mental health, there's the the National Trans Hotline just opened up a couple of months ago, or I should say over the summer. And that's like staffed by all trans volunteers and employees who are just like there to chat with you. Like, are you on that ledge and you need to be talked off? They're with you. Like, or are you just going through a crisis and just need to chat it out? They're with you. And you know what? Let me take 2 seconds and Google this number real quick, because if I'm going to mention it, I might as well drop the number, right? Holding.
No, it's okay. But you know what? I've always noticed too from your social media pages is that you are so open and inviting and always sharing information for upcoming events, places to go, people who are in need. So you kind of are like your own hotline as well too.
You know, I try. Oh, that number, since we have it now, 877-565-8860. If you ever need a trans homie to chat with, they gotcha. But yeah, I try my damnedest as someone who is the biggest introvert one could possibly know, to be, if I'm not like actively doing things in community, being at least like, hey, these are things that I know that are happening. You can go to those things. Like, yes. I'm not going to be there, not because I don't support, but because, you know, I just love me and my alone time.
Yes, your own space. I'm the same way too. I'm like, you can go do all of that. I'm going to be here doing nothing, or just enjoying myself. I'm never doing nothing. I'm just always enjoying myself and my
enjoying the company of me.
Exactly. Well, that is awesome. I'm always glad to chat with you. Oh, I am. You're always so just lively and just making me feel good.
Hey, I love seeing your face and being able to chat with you as well. I definitely remember the first time, shout out to Kyle. Hey. I remember we were at work and I saw you walking and I was like, who is that? And he was like, oh, like, that's my girl. And I was like, oh, okay. And just like the energy exchange on the first interaction, I was always just like, wow. Like, and it's never disappointed since. Being able to link with you is always a good time.
Oh, same. I always look forward. I was like, I hope Izra's working. I just need them to be there. I just loved everything. And Kyle did he still does love everything about you. Yeah, he would always tell me stories like, yeah, I get to work with Izra today. Like, it's wonderful. So that's always, I heard more about you before I met you. Equally. And then it was like nice to put like a face to a name. So that was awesome as well too.
Yes.
Well, do you have any closing statements or advice for our listeners out there?
Oh, at the end of the day, turn inward. That's my best advice for everyone. Turn inward.
Yes, I love it.
You'll figure it out. You'll know your best self. You'll know your best happiness. Just everyone else is just along for the ride. So just don't think of it as selfish to prioritize you. Remember that you're only here for you. Although we're all here to help other human beings and be the kindest human beings we can, how can we do that if we don't even know the human being that we are? So that's going to be my closing tip is, take the time to explore yourself.
Always. And where can one find you if they feel like they want to chat with you, get to know you a little bit more, or if they just need some advice or just a nice, trans person to chat with, to keep it real with them?
For sure. Okay. Are you ready? I'm probably the lamest person you've had on this show. I only have one social media platform. It's my Instagram. The period Izra, Izra, period J. That's it. That's literally the only place you can find me online. I guess if you technically wanted to be really weird, there's an old Facebook that exists, but I don't log on to that.
Yes, I don't think anyone uses Facebook anymore. That's for everyone's aunts and uncles and your family pictures.
Exactly. That's where you go for the good old Flashback Friday pics that you post somewhere else.
Yes. For me personally, it was MySpace, but if you can find my MySpace page, you have found some gold.
Here's tea. If anybody can find my MySpace page, I'm going to need you to send me the link because I had some gold on that MySpace and I don't even remember what the email was that I used for it.
No.
I'm like, damn, I had some bangers on that though.
My playlist was lit, the music, the pictures. I was going through some weird phases. If you guys want to see me as a gothic chick, find my MySpace page. Blackmail me and send me that shit. And I
would love to see those myself. So, I'm definitely going to need somebody to put in the legwork to make that happen.
Yeah, put in some little FBI where, look, I'm going to start licking myself. I'm like, let me first. Well, Izra, it was a pleasure chatting with you, and we'll chat with you next time. And as always, you guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, all under Hustle Bunny Podcast. Till next time, guys, stay hustling, my little bunnies.